I'm back for another Sunday shout out, and this week I have the amazing, crazy talented Stu Brootal. Whoop woo! Hey, dude.
Hi, thank you. That's a very, very, very generous introduction. I appreciate that.
No, definitely, it's the truth. You are an artist. You're a tattoo man. You do your own
Yes.
music. You vibe it out like a cool dude.
Cool as I can.
So I'm just thinking back to when we met. I got introduced to you by a vocalist friend of mine
Hmm.
because I was thinking about getting a tattoo.
Yeah.
And Katie thought of you straight away.
Yeah, she's really cool.
And I remember like a couple of weeks before, she posted up a tattoo that you'd done for her.
Big blade.
Yeah, that was it. It was the big blade. And
Yeah.
I just remember seeing that artwork and being like, whoa, who on
Yeah.
earth did that?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite ones. It still is. It's still one of my favorite ones I've ever done. It's just so detailed. Like the handle of the blade is so intricate and so pretty. It's just very bejeweled, and then the blade itself has like this nice three-dimensional like helix through it. And yeah, she was tough enough to sit through it, which is difficult with something of that level of detail, you know. But she's a tough girl, yeah.
When you were talking about doing it, like, did she have an initial idea and then you just went
Yeah.
crazy on it?
All the clients that like really, really like people who come to me because they've seen my page and seen my artwork, like I mean, you spend years developing a client base. You eventually like find your demographic, and then those people will see the things that you do and see your original artwork and then reach out and be like, look, I just want something from you specifically. She just reached out, told me she wanted a blade, and then I just went nuts. I want tattoos too, but I can't necessarily put all these tattoos on myself. So if I'm gonna do a tattoo, I want to do something that I would definitely get also. So she kind of just like let me rock and roll with it, and it just turned out really, really beautiful. Like I mean, it's the same with music. If you let go of the reins and just put their heart into it, you're gonna get the best product. Like too much control over an artist, almost like someone reading a book over your shoulder. You know what I mean? Or like someone trying to like guide your hand while you're drawing. It's very frustrating. So like with clients like Katie and just all my great clients who just kind of go, you know, do your thing. Like you, even when we were designing your shirt, you were just like, hey, here's the idea, just run with it. And then it ended up being something even more. I was able to put my own personal perspective on life inside of the image, the connection of life and Fibonacci spirals like inside of it, love and things like that being the unifying force of all things. And when you allow a creative to just do their thing, it always comes out so much better.
It is crazy good, like ridiculously good. When I saw it, my jaw just dropped, like literally. And that has been the way that I felt about your artwork. Like when I see your stuff online and the designs that you've sent me, especially when we did my bird tattoo, and it was my very first tattoo, like haven't
Yeah.
got them before. I knew when I was thinking about doing it, I was like, wow, my mum is going to kill me. She's never kind of thought of me having tattoos. When I told her and explained like how important it was to me, because I was just about to go onto my original journey writing my album. And then when I got introduced to you and spoke to you about what I wanted, and I wanted a bird, and most importantly, a hummingbird, I remember sending you a couple of images, just some ideas, because I wanted to go on that sort of Aztec side of things. And I remember you saying like straight up, just trust me in it, let me have creative
Yeah.
control, like I've got this. And I totally knew that it was going to be awesome. And when the design, when you sent it through like the night before, freaking hell, like let's do this.
Yeah, basically, like when people give me a guideline, like an image starts to appear inside of my head, that's the vital moment. Is like when I know something's going to be really great, is like when the image begins to appear. If people allow me to just pursue that image, that like internal, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know where ideas and creativity stem from. I have my theories on it. I think they stem from a place that's a lot deeper than just the intellect. I think they come from like I would say the soul. I think that when you see a piece of art, you could see a drawing of just an apple that somebody did and it seems so empty and so soulless because it's just a drawing of an apple. But then you could see another drawing of an apple that someone like really put their heart and soul into it, and you're like, wow, like that's beautiful. Like you can sense soul inside of an image. And I think that when like the visions appear inside, when people give me ideas, it's not just the intellect, it's the infinite creativity and potential of the soul beaming out these ideas. When you get all of like the intellect out of the way and you just allow your soul to sort of like represent you for a moment, and just to kind of like project something into your conscious mind, then hopefully you can capture that and then pursue it, and with the skills that you've developed, learn to almost grasp the intangible and put it out on a piece of paper, you know. Like it's the same with music. Intangible idea, there's no weight to it. There's just feeling, this almost like just this empty thought that once it's brought out into the world, it's so heavy and it's so beautiful. That's the
Yeah.
way I look at tattoos also. So once presented with an idea, if my clients just kind of let me rock and roll with it, man, like we
Yeah.
we always end up having like the best time, and we end up getting the best results, you know.
Yeah, no, definitely. I really loved that adventure, that new journey for me as a first tattoo person. I'd love even to get to the point of thinking about doing the second one with you. And I
Yeah,
remember like even talking to you about it, like we're not there yet at some point. And even like
you're on
people
your
were
way.
saying, oh, okay, well, when you do the second album, you'll have a tattoo that goes with your second album.
Yeah,
So maybe I'll do one
100%.
on the other arm.
They're great markers for like different stages in life too, you know. Like I have a different view on, like, because some people say tattoos need to have meaning. Your taste in general in art and beauty is the meaning. I think that you spend your whole life going through a series of experiences that help craft
Mm.
the taste that you have. So like even if it's like just a beautiful piece of art that you want as a tattoo, if someone's like, well, what does it mean? It's like, well, what it means is it represents my whole life experience all summed up into this one moment of inspiration where I saw it and I want it. But they are great markers. Like when something really important happens, or you're stepping into a new stage of life and you get a tattoo, I think that's another great way of like adding meaning into a tattoo, you know what I mean?
I look at it in such a great light and a great memory. The session as well was awesome with you. I didn't know how it would go, and like also especially like how my body would react to it too. And I remember you setting
Yeah.
me up and kind of saying, look, like bring sugary things just to top up your blood sugar, because when you're there like on the table for a couple of hours.
Like once your body hits that shock level, like once you're in a certain amount of pain and like your blood sugar drops and you go all white and stuff like that, you want to make sure. Because I mean, I had a guy the other day, he sat in for a full day session and he was just absolutely rocking it. We filled out his whole forearm, the whole front, like inside of his forearm was absolutely massive, beautiful lion
Whoa.
piece that we did. But it was in that last hour where he almost collapsed and he felt like he was gonna throw up, and like it was like that last little bit, like we really had to fight for that. It's an experience, you know. Like I mean, he was with me for 7 hours.
Yeah,
You
okay,
know what I
that's
mean?
crazy.
So I mean, like on your after your sixth hour, if you're starting to feel lightheaded, then you have every reason to feel lightheaded.
It's been a year now. Like I had it with you in June, like June last year.
And it's not like dark in this blown out way. It's like really precise, and it's like
Yeah.
very, like I choose my inks quite carefully. Like I use silverback, and the ink itself is called stupid black. Like because there's like they create inks with like different pigments and like different ingredients and stuff, and so you have a bunch of different types of black. A lot of people think you just only have one kind. But you'll see some tattoos will be done in a black, and then a year later it almost looks blue. And
Oh
then some
wow.
tattoos will be done in like a really, really dense black, and you'll have a, a nice, solid, stupid black tattoo. You know what I mean? Like,
I got a
so yeah,
stupid tattoo.
yeah, man,
We talked about having the head here at one point and like
yeah,
having the tail here, but then I just thought because it would work like being like walking and like
yeah.
having the
But
arm
then,
down.
yeah, the whole point is that it's a representative of the music that you're singing. So
Yeah.
like, it was definitely the right choice. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree 100%. You got the logo on show, like right there on the stage. You know.
Yeah.
You know, like
Definitely.
the first thing the light hits is the is the logo. So
Actually, I had the tattoo and then I flew like that afternoon. I don't know.
yeah,
Don't know how. I remember having the actual the wrap that you put on
yeah.
it.
I've had people message me and they're like, my tattoo's falling out. And I'm like, there's literally no way for that to happen. Like, unless someone didn't put it in deep enough or something like that, like it doesn't escape. The ink itself and the pigment itself is like thick enough to where it won't pass back through. Like, if someone was explaining it to me one day, and I was like, damn. I was like, that's pretty impressive, the way that they've really given the thought to it. You know what I mean? Because like there's been all kinds of inks over the ages. I mean, people were using like just like pen ink forever ago. You know what I
Whoa.
mean? Like, like the old school sailor tattoos. Like, that's why they look so terrible. They were using like wooden machine, like some of the stuff you'll see in tattoo museums. They are so archaic and just so
Really?
like just disgusting. Like something that you just definitely couldn't clean. And like, now like everything's so precise and everything's so well thought through, So like I've had people be like, I think my tattoo's coming out, and I'm like, don't worry, it's gonna be there forever.
I gave you an image recently and asked if you would be up for doing a bespoke design for
Yeah,
merchandise that I've got coming
yeah.
up. And yeah, you absolutely smashed that one.
So if there's any way that I could get that like specially printed like really big on the back of a hoodie, like
Yeah,
'cause it's like the perfect circle. I really really like that. The back of the hoodie, and
definitely.
then maybe like your band's like logo, name, whatever you're using at the time, like right on the front, like maybe up on the corner. I think that'd be
Yeah,
fun.
we'll get that sorted. Definitely.
So it's just solo project, and you just kind of bringing in producers and studio musicians and stuff to build the instrumentals, or do you have a band?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. So I've had 19 musicians on the album, which is
yes, yeah,
awesome. So
yeah,
it's
fuck
been like
yeah.
it's been a really big like collaboration. We've got 2 drummers on it. I think I've got 3 guitars, backing vocalist, violin is on it as well. And then I've got 2 sets of horns. So it's
That's
like
beautiful.
big guns going on. So there's different people playing on different tracks
You
throughout
want to
it.
have all the sauce you can get. The music that I'm making right now, like I'm doing with like Ben Elmer and Joe Scholler, and like the chemistry that us three have together has become this like really, really beautiful thing. And like now other artists are starting to get involved because they're hearing what we're doing, and like other guitarists are like, oh my God, and like freaking out because Ben's a different breed of guitarist. Because me and
Yeah.
him were getting along before, and like we made Seeking My Soul, like where he like made a lot of like the basic melodies for it. But now like our stuff is like really guitar based and really bass based, and like then all of the drums and mixing and production like I do myself, but like I would really like to get like a live drummer. I tend to use like created break beats like out of live drum samples, like out of really realistic drum
Yeah.
samples. So I'll
Yeah.
create these like really beautiful break beats and then lay those over the top of my like trap style drums of like really digital 808 stuff, and like have that lovely like slap of like the organic
Yeah.
kick, and combining those sounds is really beautiful. But like there's a swung rhythm that comes with the organic drumming that changes everything. Like especially even with like bass and guitar, there is a swung rhythm that comes with it that just like you can try and recreate it digitally, but it doesn't happen the same way. There's not that
Yeah.
same,
Yeah. Yeah.
like I was saying, the soul it doesn't have that soul timing. That soul timing is
Yeah.
always like, I mean, it always brings the funk. You know what I'm saying? So I'm
Definitely.
quite excited for you with having that many people. You're gonna have a huge
Yes.
time. You're gonna have a huge time. I
Cheers.
aspire to that. I think that's really really admirable. I really like that.
Thank you. Like the new motto that I've found over the last year and a bit has been if you don't ask, you don't get. And
Yeah.
I was so nervous right at the beginning of the project. I thought, oh my gosh, I've wanted to write this album for such a long time, but there's something else to creating
So
original music.
this is your original song.
This
Like you're
is from
you're
the
the one
heart.
writing.
Fabian, who has written the album with me, just said, just ask people. You
Yeah.
have an amazing bunch of musicians in Austria and London that you've worked with over the last few years. I'm sure if you ask them.
I think that having that length of diversity is brilliant. I would never think that someone like David or Future Funk Squad or any of these like really like interesting electronica, breakbeat, EDM artists would take an interest in me. I would expect them to be into like singers and stuff like that, but they've, because of the whole breakbeat style, it goes so well with the whole rap style. And then like it's also very rock and roll too. They're also very, very heavy now.
Yeah.
So like when I get into my rock side of things, like because I grew up listening to punk rock and metal, it goes so well with it. And like they really brought out like the side, like they really helped me learn during the recording of that album. It really brought out how much I realized that like I'm able to sing and I'm able to do all of these things. And yeah, like working with different people unlocks these different dimensions of yourself because they push you to the next level. Where it's like, well, I can't just stay the same if I'm going to try and get inside of the head of these guys. I have to expand and expand and expand. I'm sure you feel exactly the same
Yeah.
way.
I never ever thought, oh no, I just want to work with 5 people and that is it. Like it would just grew and it grew very naturally. When I asked people if they'd be involved on this track, everybody said yes. And it was so great. And then there were people that I'd never worked with before, but had thought about them or they'd been in contact with me previously and was like, hey, if you want me to do a track for you, then get in touch. And that was when it just naturally came. An Austrian bassist that I'd been chatting with on Instagram, and he's a big fan of Stefan Redenbacher, who is part of the Funkestra project. He even said probably a year before I even started recording, he was like, hey, if you'd like bass at some point, like please do let me know. I'd love to. So he was in my forefront of my mind when I was thinking about working with different musicians. And yeah, and I asked him for the track and he recorded it remotely. I went out to Vienna in March just to work on the album a little bit more. And then the whole lockdown happened and I ended up staying out there for 6 months.
Yeah.
And then in the end, we just completed the album in that time. And
That's the blessing of the lockdown is you kind of get
yes.
stuck in the situation. Yeah. Everyone around was like, oh, it sucked. And it was like, well, you should have gotten a hobby. Because every single one of us who got like something that we absolutely love to do,
Yeah.
like we were like, oh, I don't have to go to work. How terrible. You know what I mean? Like we were just like just working on music the entire time. Being out in Vienna, that is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it was awesome. And the boys had gear at home so they could remotely record and just send everything to the studio. And then Fabian and I just worked at Sheep Studios together and just completed it all.
Music a funny one because like you are far more malleable than you'd ever expect yourself to be, and like you're able to not necessarily change yourself, but like as a creative, like morphing into different like situations is it becomes like relatively easy. Like it almost like as a creative, like you're naturally a creative. I'm a firm believer that like the limitations that you experience in life are the limitations set by your opinion of who you think you are. So if you think you're a person who's unable to do something, then you will only ever behave in the way of a person who is unable to do something. Whereas if you're able to understand that you're a person capable of all and everything, like you have infinite potential inside of you, that when you're faced with like all of these different situations, you'd be incredibly surprised at how your limits just are they just disappear. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like like sometimes you hit that limit and you're like, oh no, I'm in trouble now, and then the creativity allows you to break down that wall. But I'm a firm believer that we should understand that those walls are just thought illusion in the first place. Like you're capable of pretty much anything that you're faced with, especially as a creative. It is your natural inclination. Like you're naturally born to bend into these creative situations. And I think it's super exciting working with new people, and because you worry at first, you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm really gonna hit it on the head, and you're only whoever you think you are in the moment, and then sometimes a person comes along and just shatters that, and you realize, oh man, I'm actually I'm doing exactly what I set out to do, and
Mm.
that's a nice feeling. It's a very nice
Smashing
feeling.
it. So what's the plan with you, like music wise now? So you said that you were writing, you wrote like and some albums in like 2 weeks.
Yeah, like so the albums I wrote with David, we were gonna call it Grief the Machine, and I
Cool.
decided that I didn't want to call it Grief the Machine. Like I'll call the album Grief the Machine. I want it as a Stu Brootal record because I don't want to split it up so much. I want to make sure that people understand that this is like the diversity of my own creativity. You know what
Mm.
I mean? That album is done. Unfortunately, like one of the best songs on there, I've lost the actual Logic file for it, but I have a really nice master. So I think I might use that as a way to introduce the album, like a single to put out just to show that we're about to drop this whole thing. But I mean, it is so heavy, and like honestly, like I get quite emotional about my music. And I remember like sitting listening through the whole record with Tony, and like at one point, like I just, not because I was sad, but like I just kind of started crying because I was like, I can't believe that I made this. Can't
Mm.
believe that I was able to get so far out of my comfort zone, that I was able to find a sound that truly represents me better than any other music that I've ever made. So like I was really happy with that. But like next year, 2 albums coming out that'll be back to back. The main thing is to make sure that I have great videos for them. We did the Seeking My Soul video,
That's
and that
super.
video, yeah, that video was something else. Like I was really happy with that. And like I had a client owns a 2-story car garage where he fixes like Lamborghinis and stuff, and he emptied the whole place out and let us use it. And so it was like this really perfect dirty environment. So the guy in the video who's like shirtless with all the tattoos, I'm working on his body sleeve, but he's covered in chains, and he like represents that sort of like grinding demon inside of your head, and he's wearing like a Jason mask, which is one of like my symbols. I
Yeah, I
wear
did
like
see that.
little Jason mask. Like it's
Whoa.
like, and I got them all over the place. Like he was like grinding away in the background, and he's the owner of that establishment, and shooting all the sparks all over the place. And we just are gonna have to top that video. And so like it's, and I have this, we have one song called Saints in Harmony, and like it's about how like beyond all of who I think I am, like when everything begins to fade away, when I stop like thinking about my own problems, when I stop thinking about my own separateness, that there's me and then another person, when I start thinking about the interconnectedness of everything, all I can hear is this perfect harmony of existence, even inside of like the chaotic and the conflict. It seems to be perfectly harmonious with the way the universe exists. And so like this battle between like the good and the evil is this like this necessary harmony. Because that song's such a big song, I want to make sure that we have a really big video
Yeah.
for it. So like the budgets are gonna have to, I'm gonna have to start really, really pushing it,
You've
and like
started
really.
it now.
And as we go, I think that more opportunities will open up. You know what I
Definitely.
mean? Because people will begin to see the quality of these videos, and then some
Yeah.
people will be able to offer new things. And
Have you got your filmographer?
I mainly use Jacob Hunter,
Cool.
but I'm beginning to do videography too and photography
Sweet.
now. And Tony is gonna like basically assist me with that. And then I would like to do like basic videos with me and friends rapping like in different situations. And then big videos like Moss Media. In January, I had like a really, really big show for the release party of my album Death and Other Cures. It was so good that like when I got to the point where I was supposed to play, I almost didn't play
What?
because KNC and all those guys played before me, and they had such a big reaction that I was like, I don't know if I can top that. And then obviously, like I went on, and it was absolutely fantastic. Moss Media was supposed to be filming that whole thing, and he did, and then went home, and his hard drive got corrupted with the files on it. In his own words, he owes me a video. He's a very busy man, but he makes some incredible videos. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get Moss Media to be the
Yes.
guy who does the video for Saints in Harmony, and try and use that one as like the opening one, and set the stage for something quite impressive and quite big and beautiful. Like he does a lot of great work, and he's a very humble family man, and I appreciate working with people like that. Creatively, we'd be able to see eye to eye on a lot of these things, because he works with a lot of rappers, and like it would be really interesting to see his potential for almost like cinematic type videos.
Yeah.
That's essentially the plan. Next year is just like draining myself absolutely dry financially. I'm getting married next year. So like,
What?
yeah,
Amazing.
thank you
Yes.
very much. So like we got to pay for like a honeymoon, like all this stuff. So like there's no doubt in my mind I'll be able to do it. It's just gonna take a little bit of extra work. It's 7 days a week, and then I have like one day that I spend with just me and Tony. You know, got to make sure I have that day, but the rest of it is all just loaded up with stuff. But I'd much rather be that way. Next year, hopefully release these 2 albums back to back, like over a 12-month period. I'll probably release a lot of singles. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Like, and
definitely.
then
That's the way.
yeah, and then at the end, at like once they've all kind of like built the buzz, like release an album and then do it again, and
Keep
just
going and keep going up, up and up and up and up. And
yeah, exactly,
smashing out the music and the videos, definitely.
exactly. I'm gonna make sure that I do it like to the fullest, and you know, I think that the biggest thing is that people give up. They give up when it's hard. Like, to me, the whole thing is hard. Giving up is hard. You know what I mean? Like giving up the thing that you love the most hurts like hell. And like people think that that's the easier way to deal with a hard situation. And it's just not in the long run. Like you're just going to be in so much more pain because of it. Life is coming at you no matter what, man. You just got to
Mm-hmm.
understand that pain is what will transform you and guide you into a new section of your life. And if you're allowing fear to guide your decision, and the pain is arriving now you're experiencing pain because of your fear. It's a different type of transformation, which locks you slowly back into your limitations.
Mm-hmm.
I've met some really talented people who just kind of gave. I mean, it may have not been what they wanted in the long run, but they could have went the distance, you know. But
Yeah.
you know, they chose to do other things, and me and my fiance have actively chosen to like not pursue like having children and stuff like that, because we want to see how far we can take this music and tattooing thing. And if it can take us to like the biggest level, then yeah, we'll think about having kids and stuff. I don't believe in like the plan A plan B thing. I think that like your plan B should be like the means to an end for your plan A, like so that you can get it to gain leverage for your plan A, like, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm completely against the whole idea of this 9 to 5 like nonsense. I think that it was made by rich people, handed down to poor people, conditioned through the generations, and now we believe that that's the way that we're supposed to live. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone that I've met who lives that way wishes that they didn't. I mean, I'm not going to allow that to happen to me or to Tony. You know,
No.
like I don't want that to be our lives, and I don't want that to be. If I can help it, I wouldn't want it to be anybody's lives. So, but you're supposed to, you know, tend to the garden you can touch, and so I will, and I'll try and use my firmly held beliefs, and the risk and reward. Just forget about it. Like, stop considering yourself like this potential for disaster, and start considering yourself the potential for success. Like,
Whoop.
you're only ever the imagination of who you believe yourself to be. And I truly believe that. And as you begin to form practices to where you can begin to assume, almost like use your imagination to assume the role, like an actor, like to assume, because you're basically an actor anyway. You just act the way that you think you're supposed to act, like in this play, like socially. But like you just reimagine who you would love to be the most, and allow, just for fun, allow yourself to feel like that person and walk around as that person. And to me, you will gradually start to take that form, because that is the way that we are. That is how the ego works. That is how the structure of the ego works. The ego is not necessarily like, oh, I'm so great. It is who you think you are in relation to everything else. And all of that is through conditioning. And to say that you aren't able to do the conditioning to yourself is ridiculous. Allow yourself to assume the role of the already achieved person that like has achieved everything that you've ever dreamed of, and walk like you have, breathe like you have, be like you have. Allow
Yeah.
yourself to feel it, because it opens up. Thoughts are causative. The way you think will determine the way that you act. It will determine the potentials you'll see and the opportunities that come your way, or at least the opportunities you'll pay attention to. And I definitely believe that you can draw things into your life. I mean, there's the new age think of like the secret and like the law of attraction and stuff. But this stuff goes so far back in our human history. 2 days after this very intense practice that I learned through a man named Neville Goddard, he became like a teacher of this whole like idea of like the mind being causative and the imagination being divine, and like that the imagination of God is what we live in now, and that we are created in the image of God. And so our imagination is what helps create the rest of the reality. And like in the Hermetic philosophy, there's this idea that God created 90% of everything and then created us in its image to create the other 10%. And like I just believe that. Like it just seems to be that's seen like through a series of events I've seen to come to an
Wow.
understanding that that's part of what we're dealing with here. We have a lot more to do with the creation of our lives than we think.
Yeah.
And if you, like they say, if you don't have a plan, you will become part of someone else's, you know? And it's like if you don't
Preach.
have a view on reality, if you don't have a view for your own reality, you will become part of someone else's.
I'm like,
Yeah.
mind blown.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I
It's
rant when I get into those things. I do rant, but like it comes from a genuine place, like where I feel like it's necessary to especially as creatives to share this information with one another and remind each other that we are more powerful than just our skill. We're more powerful than just like the being creative, that we actually are a part of a natural system of law. And like we figure out some of the laws like to where we can write them down, like the laws of physics and things like that, and into quantum physics and all these kinds of things. We can figure those laws out and write them down and prove them to one another. But there are other laws that like before we figured out the laws of physics and created the theories for those, we didn't know that they worked that way. So there are still other laws that we're still trying to figure out scientifically. But there have been other ways of studying the universe before science. And one of those ways was like through occultism, which also blended in with alchemy, which gave birth to the Western world. It's massive in the Renaissance. It gave birth to a whole new way of thinking and understanding how the world worked. And I mean, even like back to like Egypt, like ancient Egypt, and Thoth is my favorite god. He's absolutely incredible. And Hermes Trismegistus in the Hermetic text, and that's a big long story. If you look up Hermes
okay.
Trismegistus, you look up Thoth, and you look up the Emerald Tablets and things like that, you'll begin to see that there are ideas about the universe that were so old and predate science so far, but seem to have a perfect correlation with science. One of the Hermetic principles is that nothing is still and everything vibrates. Like if me and you sit here completely still, we will never notice vibration. We'll notice sound and things like that, but we won't. We might notice that something's vibrating if it's making sound, but we won't notice that everything's vibrating. But we know now that everything is vibrating. They clearly had a way of analyzing the universe which allowed them to get an answer which is scientifically now proven thousands of years ago. You know what I mean? Like hundreds of
Crazy.
years ago, you
Yeah.
know, and like when I start reading things like that, I'm like, oh, okay. So like science is one way of studying. But we've had many, 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 many ways of studying. So the reason they wrote stuff down, I mean, not everybody could read and write. So they had scribes who wrote the most important things down so they could hand them on to the next generation. What do you think the pyramids are for? The pyramids are giant pieces of information that allow us to understand who we are and our connection to the universe. the more we study them, the more we begin to realize that that's what they basically are. They're like almost like these three-dimensional object libraries. They're like these weird Rubik's cubes that every time you figure out one side, it like unveils like a new idea about our connection to the universe, even down to like the geometry of the building itself. And we live in a seriously, seriously beautiful world. And we have completely forgotten that we're part of something so deeply incredible. We spend all of our time like worrying about Instagram and worrying about this and that, and we don't even bother to look. We are part of a plan, and we know that there's natural law that is unbreakable. And so any natural law that is unbreakable is held together by some force that is infallible, which to me means nature is God. And the nature of God is to hold all forces of nature together. And I think that there are forces of nature that have to do with our consciousness and the interplay of our consciousness with physical reality and how we assist with the creation of it. And I think that it's just something that science will soon figure out. Many other forms of study have already figured it out. They're just waiting for science to catch up. Yeah, I get so excited talking about it. Like I have
Love it.
I have like the Kabbalion right here. Like this is like one of my favorite books ever. It's like the Hermetic philosophy. I keep this with me in almost every room that I go into. But first glance, like a lot of people thought that it was like this novelty occult book because it's quite short, and they basically break down like a whole lot of the concepts of occultism, like these really, really old theories from like dating back to Egypt and the Renaissance and stuff like that. Throughout time, they break them down into these really like almost scientific explanation. They don't go too deep into the mysticism of things. They explain it in a very literal way.
Okay.
And like a lot of people would like look at it and be like, that's just a novelty occult book. But the more you get into it, and the more you read it, the more you begin to see that it's almost like this instruction manual on how to begin to understand some of like the deepest philosophies that we've been given by our ancestors. And I think that as creative artists, we must remember that if these laws are real, then that gives us power over our futures,
Mm-hmm.
and that we must become in tune with these powers so that
Yeah.
we can make something for ourselves, because we've just been told that you need to go to work so that you can make something of yourself. When I now know that I am part of something truly divine in nature, I just think that anything that is an infinite universe is divine by nature. It's absolutely all powerful and beautiful, and I am that. I'm part of it. So are you.
Yeah.
And like,
Bam.
so I mean, as
Love it.
creatives, we should take a deeper look into what our ancestors are trying to tell us. They didn't say it for no reason.
I have to read that book. I'm intrigued.
I listened to it all the way through, and I turned it back on and just laid there and listened to it again. And like now, like at least once a week, we like put it on and listen to it,
Oh,
and I'll
really?
just
That's
grab the
cool.
book and open it to a random page, like, and just start reading. Like I'll open it to a random page, start reading, and that's one of the interesting things about like books that are almost considered holy is like if everything's according to the laws of nature, if everything is only happening like we're almost like inside of this big gear system and everything only happens for the reason like it's lawfully unfolding, then me opening this book and starting on a paragraph is part of a lawful unfolding of the universe. So like it's meant to be in that moment. And
Mm.
if my mind is open enough, I can take in this information, and whether it applies to what I'm doing right in that moment or not, it tends to always come about later on, or it's intrigued me to the degree where like I can't look away anymore. It's become a huge part of my music. It's the most important aspect of my life. Like it's just music and the study of who we are and what we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
freedom.
it's freedom. It's what it's all about. It's all about it, like just finding your way through this beautiful, beautiful life, and never forgetting that, like, no matter how alone you feel in any given moment, there's someone 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 100 years ago who's trying to talk to you. Their physical body might not be here, but they've written it down. They're trying to communicate with you. You're never alone. We are not our physical body. We are something so much more. Whenever you feel alone, pick a book, man. Let that person speak. Be with someone, you know. People aren't bound by their physical bodies. We're not just that. We're so much more. We're the soul that gets put into every single word, that gets put into the most beautiful book that you've ever read. Inside of that is a person. Are we just these vessels for information, for divine information? And if the divine information can be delivered in another way, things like that, you know, like,
Wow.
you know,
My
you
head
know what
is
I'm saying?
exploding.
Yeah, mine too. All the time. It's hard to sleep.
I knew the chat
Yeah,
would be good.
I'm really happy with it. I was kind of telling myself, I was like, don't rant, don't rant. But then, like, if I get onto a subject that I feel really passionately about, oh my God, it
No, it's
flows.
good.
You only see things from where you're standing. This
Mm.
just so happens to be where I'm standing. And if you're across the street and I'm explaining the view from where I'm standing, I'm fully aware of what I'm talking about. And I might be a little bit crazy in terms of whatever is considered normal. It's nice to share that with other creatives because it's inspiring to hear about the whole
Uh,
process of what
it
you've
really is.
done. And like all the things that you've done make me feel like I can do those same things.
Mm-hmm.
And so any inspiration you can share with me, I would love to be able to share some inspiration with you, and hopefully we can grow from one another. And I think that's what these talks are supposed to be about, sharing experience and allowing one another to grow from it. You know, we're part of the same family. You know, we need to
No,
have each other's
completely.
backs and make sure that the stories we tell one another uplift each other
Yeah.
into a new place, a higher level. Because I like now I feel even more inclined to, like you said, like if you don't ask, you don't receive. I
Mm-hmm.
feel more inclined to reach out and not be afraid to do that. For the longest time, I limited myself so much to
Yeah.
just being full DIY. And then I was like, you know what? I can't do it anymore. And
Yeah.
now, like you're talking about sax players and 3 bass players and 17 drummers. And I'm just like, well, that is like the goal. They all want to play. I want to play too. We can all play together. Like, what? Why would we think for a second the musicians don't want to play music?
It is finding your tribe, finding the right people for you.
Especially with the chemistry that Joe and Ben and Cody already have
Yeah.
with one another. If I could get those three on stage while I got 808s and mad hip hop blasting through the speakers and then these live drums going absolutely nuts, it would just be a completely different experience. Like, you know, and
Yeah.
we'd be able to play like not only just the rap shows, but the rock shows and like the indie shows and like all the shows that are like alternative,
Yeah, definitely.
like a limitless genre, you know.
I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to the live shows when they happen again. Yeah, just getting everyone involved. And it's something I've been doing the last few weeks, especially online, is gaining like that further community around music and gaining a really positive vibe. Yeah, I'm just super excited about this merchandise release that I want to do, and you being involved in it. I'm just super pumped for it because the designs that you've done and the designs that we are talking about doing together,
Yeah.
I'm super pumped about it because it
Yeah.
feels like now is the time. When we get
I
to that
think,
point of selling it, it's gonna be wicked.
yeah, and it's gonna give way to other stuff. You and I have to make a song together at some point. If we're doing something, we definitely need to make sure that we do that because that would be there's two different crowds that are probably so different they would never interact with one another,
Yeah.
which would be a really interesting way to sort of like see how we could blend
Yeah, especially if you're
you.
doing the trap rap and I'm like funk disco pop.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. With like heavy metal
And
guitars
heavy
and
and
some.
rock too. Gotta chuck the
Yeah,
rock in
like
there as well.
exactly. And then just like breaking it down. And I'm not afraid of like different time signatures. I'm not afraid of switching things up. This is just the
Crazy.
start of me and you having like a creative adventure ahead of us. And it's been really, really nice like being
Yeah.
able to discuss that. And you know,
Yeah.
I'm super excited for the future. I'm really happy for you, man.
Yeah.
I'm inspired by what you're doing, and I'm glad to actually hear everything that you've managed to kind of get in place because that makes me feel that I'm capable of
Oh,
doing something
definitely.
similar. Like, so, I mean, like you've definitely touched a nerve with that because
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's super cool. And I can't wait to like hear
Cheers.
and see everything that you're doing and get, you know, it's gonna be
Yeah.
cool. And I'm happy to be involved, more than happy to be involved.
I
As
am
long
so
just as
excited.
long as I get some gear. As long as I
Yeah.
get some gear. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Definitely,
yeah.
we'll organize that. I remember when we were talking about the designs and you were like, yeah, as long as you shout me up. And I was like, duh, like that's definitely going to be happening. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to be
Yeah,
hollering you
man.
up to everyone and doing this video together as well. And it's just showing everybody our working relationship.
Who's been watching, we love you very much. And we're glad that you guys stuck around. So.
Definitely. I love it. Thank you so much. This has
Not a
been
problem.
so cool. Like, what a
Yeah.
vibe. What a great energy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
bring on the future.
yeah, man, 100%. That's what it's all about, man. And I'm stoked. I'm stoked. I honestly, this has been so much fun. I do have to go because I got a
Yeah.
ton of drawing, but thank
No,
you
of
so much.
course.
Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.